The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy stretched 3 stories high, its curved walls lined with holographic displays that shifted through complex mathematical proofs. 200 students filled the amphitheater-style seating, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Scaled Dracovians sat beside crystalline lumens, while the insectoid creche clicked their mandibles in rhythm with the instructor's drone. And there, in the middle rows, Arya Ven's head drooped forward. She had been fighting it for the last 20 minutes. The exhaustion pressed down on her shoulders like a physical weight, accumulated from 72 hours of continuous study. Her species required regular sleep cycles, a biological weakness most other spacefaring races had engineered out of themselves millennia ago. But humans were the newcomers here, the primitives who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel when the rest of the galaxy had been using it for epochs. Professor Zilthak's 8 eyes gleamed as he gestured toward the equations floating in midair, his chitinous voice reverberating through the chamber. And thus, the harmonic resonance of dark matter particles requires a coefficient that accounts for. Arya's chin touched her chest. Her breathing deepened. Rek noticed first. The young Vorash cub sat 3 seats to her left, his silver fur bristling with concern. His kind, massive lupine beings from a high-gravity world possessed senses far beyond human capacity. He could hear the change in her heartbeat, smell the chemical markers of her profound exhaustion, feel the way her body temperature had dropped as her system began to shut down for recovery. His ears flattened against his skull. Humans were fragile. Everyone knew this. They broke easily, tired constantly, and required an absurd amount of maintenance. But this Arya, had shared her nutrient paste with him when he'd forgotten his meal pack during the 30-hour exam preparation. She had stayed up explaining human mathematical philosophy to him when his pack-learning instincts couldn't grasp individual problem-solving. She had treated him like a packmate. And now she was vulnerable. Rek's throat rumbled low at first, barely audible. Then, following an instinct buried deep in his genetic memory, the instinct that made his people protect their wounded, their young, their sleeping pack members. He threw his head back and howled. The sound shattered the lecture like a stone through glass. Professor Xilthak froze mid-gesture. Every head in the amphitheater turned. The howl echoed off the curved walls, primal and urgent, speaking of danger and protection in a language that transcended species. "What is the meaning of?" the professor began. But then another howl joined Rek's. Then another. All 12 Vorash cubs in the lecture hall lifted their voices in a chorus that made the very air vibrate. Their message was clear, coded in harmonics that their kind had used since before they'd discovered fire. Pack member sleeping, vulnerable, must protect. Be quiet, guard the sleeper. The Dracovians understood first their species had similar pack dynamics. One by one, they began to hiss softly, a soothing sound their kind used in nesting caves. The lumens dimmed their natural luminescence, creating pockets of shadow. Even the creche, normally dismissive of mammalian behavior, began clicking in low, rhythmic patterns. Professor Zilthak's mandibles clacked in confusion. "This is highly irregular. I demand, Professor." A voice cut through the chaos, calm, deep, and unmistakably human. Dr. Marcus Webb stood at the back entrance, his human instructor badge glowing softly. He'd been monitoring the lecture remotely and had sprinted across campus the moment the howling began. His dark eyes swept the scene. Arya, unconscious. The cubs in protective formation. 200 students creating a blanket of quiet sounds. "She's been awake for 3 days, preparing for your exam," Webb said, his voice carrying despite its softness. "Her species needs sleep to survive. Right now, those cubs are doing what her body can't, protecting her while she's defenseless." Zilthak's eyes rotated independently, processing this information. "But the lecture can continue at a whisper," Webb interrupted. "Or would you prefer to explain to the Academy Board why you prioritized volume over a student's health?" The professor's carapace plates shifted the equivalent of a human swallowing nervously. He looked at Arya's sleeping form, at the protective ring of Vorash cubs, who had instinctively moved closer to her, at the 200 students who had spontaneously created an environment of peace. Something shifted in his ancient mind. "Very well," Zilthak murmured. his voice dropping to barely a whisper. He turned back to his equations, but now his gestures were gentle, his chittering voice soft, the holographic displays dimmed automatically, their harsh light becoming a gentle glow. For the next 40 minutes, the lecture continued in hushed tones. Rex sat beside Arya like a silver sentinel, his ears swiveling to catch any threat. When another professor passed by the hall and opened the door with a loud pneumatic hiss, 12 sets of lupine eyes fixed on them with such intensity that they quickly closed it and hurried away. When Arya finally stirred, blinking in confusion, she found herself surrounded by protective warmth. Rex's tail thumped once against the floor, relief and joy, in a single motion. "What happened?" she mumbled. The young cub leaned close, his voice a soft rumble. "You fell asleep. We made sure nothing disturbed your rest. It is what packmates do." Arya's eyes filled with tears she didn't fully understand. She'd spent months feeling like an outsider, like a primitive among gods. But these students, these supposedly advanced beings, had done something no human institution had ever done for her. They'd recognized her need and protected her vulnerability. Professor Zilthak approached, his movements careful and quiet. "Miss Venn, in the future, please inform your instructors when your biological requirements become critical." However, his mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Your peers have taught me something today. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations forget the most basic kindness." Class dismissed quietly. As students filed out in unusual silence, Rek helped Arya gather her materials. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. She smiled, scratching behind his ear the way he'd once shyly admitted he liked. "Same time, packmate." The Vorash cub's tail wagged once. And in that moment, Arya understood something profound. Humanity might be the youngest, weakest, most fragile species in the galaxy, but they had something others had forgotten. The ability to inspire ancient instincts of protection, to remind the evolved and engineered that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was trust. And trust, the galaxy was learning, was humanity's greatest strength.